God's Dynamics Family Building
Podcast.
Yes, once again, we're here with another podcast. We have a wonderful topic today.
Yes. Uh-huh.
What's the topic today? We have the
What is
number
it?
one
The number one.
advice for marriage.
Well, it's like
for-
3 number ones.
How do we 3 number ones?
Because
How do we
just
have 3
don't-
number ones, really? It's the number one advice.
It's
for
the number
married-
one.
I don't understand. You have to explain that one. But it's number one advice for married
Uh-huh.
people. So for people looking to get married,
Uh-huh.
as well as people who are married, you can benefit from this. So it's the
Right.
number one advice for married people. So now, what did you say about 3 number ones?
Well, we have 3 different things that we're going to talk about. First, it's preservation. That's a good number one, right?
Okay, now I remember.
It couldn't be by itself. So then
So it was
we have
number one. It was actually the number one advice from 3 different
perspectives.
perspectives.
I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So it's 3
So
number
it's 3
one
number
advice.
ones.
Yes. So
Okay, and before we even move on, we're doing a twofer. So sometimes we'll be doing the recordings for our podcast, as well as we'll be doing it for YouTube. We said, why not? So if you're watching us, beautiful. If you're listening to us, fantastic. It's gonna be great.
and everything will be on www.godsdynamics.com.
GodsDynamics.com. Listen out for it.
All right, so now we got the people excited about the number one advice for marriage, whether
Mhm.
they're someone looking to get married or someone that's been married for years.
Right.
And what is that first one we have?
We have preservation.
All right, where did that come from?
I
Just out
want
of
you
thin
to
air?
take that. No, I want you to take that one.
All right, so I remember when we were getting married, I believe it was right before we got married, my father pulled both of us aside and he spoke to us, and he gave us his number one advice
Right.
for marriage, and he said that our responsibility or our role as a husband is to preserve the life of your wife. And also he spoke to you and said your number one responsibility as a wife is to preserve the life of your husband.
So, in other words, it's the responsibility of the spouse to preserve the life of the other.
Yeah, and
Right.
that's what he gave, and that's what he shared with from his own perspective, from obviously his marriage with my mom. And I think one of the things we initially had to evaluate, and this is a good point for even our listeners, is to, when people give you advice, you have to consider, where is this advice coming from? Are they qualified to give you advice on a particular subject?
Now, your parents were married for many years.
Yes, I couldn't tell you exactly how long, but as long as I was alive, as long as I've been alive, they were married. So, yeah.
Before your mom passed, yes.
Yes, before she made her transition. So, he said that the number one responsibility is to preserve. And what do you think about when you heard that? How did that click with you? What did?
I know when I think about preservation is to maintain the, how you think about even with food or, you maintain the quality. It's like keeping it. Making sure it's good. So I could relate it like that even to relationships and preserving your life, making sure you're good.
Yeah.
Making sure you're operating in peak quality, taking care of you.
As you're saying, I'm thinking about it even further, that just like how you want to preserve food and they used to do years ago, preserve meats and do canning and stuff. It takes extra work.
Yeah, it does.
It takes extra work
And
to be
marriage
able
takes
to.
extra work to
Mhm.
preserve.
It takes more work to preserve something than to just say, you know what, do whatever you want to do and whatever.
Right.
So it actually takes more work. Sometimes you have a hard-headed person that you are dealing with
Why you have
that
to
makes
point?
it a lot more difficult.
For the podcasters, you didn't see that he pointed at me.
Sometimes it does take more work to preserve the life of your spouse.
I know, that's true, because sometimes we don't allow ourselves to, because, you know, we always say, oh, we got this, or, you know, we don't allow ourselves to be taken care of.
Yeah. So definitely it was more work. But as he said it to me, I think I took it, not differently, but I think I just got another perspective from it, as far as preservation and how we're supposed to take care of it. To me, it was I got the word giving. You know, that we're supposed to give of ourselves
unselfishly.
Yes, in an unselfish way, so that our spouse, you know, can be easier for them.
Mm-hmm. Can you
Yeah.
imagine marriage? If, you know, marriages out there, relationships out there, if you even adopted that, what, you know, it makes for a fruitful marriage, a happy marriage, joyful. It also, it makes life with each other much better.
Yeah.
Even blissful.
Yeah, because if we're in a marriage thinking selfishly and not caring about the other person, it just makes it harder for that other person.
Right.
So that's what I got, as he had mentioned it, as far as giving of yourself, so that it's easier for your spouse.
And, you know, one of the things that we, and I want to see if we get into that really quickly before we even move into the other ones, is what even though, because, you know, we always come from that angle. What does a word even say about that? What even could we use as a point of reference?
But what comes to mind immediately is, I would say, what they call the golden rule, which is in Matthew chapter 7, verse 12, which is, whatsoever ye would that men should do unto you, do ye even so unto them. For this is the law and the prophet. And it's considered the golden rule, and basically saying that you do to others what you want them, how you want them to treat you.
Right.
You know, so that's what came to me initially, even with this preservation advice of doing for your spouse as you'd want them to do for you. You know, to be protective, be giving of themselves.
And I remember you talked to the children, something dealing with that, like with them moving forward in relationships, where you talked about the golden rule, they usually flip it to the other side and say it's like treat others. It's not the other side, but it's really like treat others the way you want to be treated.
Yeah, treat others the way you want to be treated. And we made sure to emphasize that it's not treat them how they treat you.
Right.
You know, because there might be times in marriage, I'm sure you felt it, I felt it before as well, that you may think the other person's not necessarily treating you the right way. But it's not for us to return back and treat them that way. But no, you know what? Preserve their life. Give of yourself. Treat them the way that you want to be treated. And
it
so
makes for you know, some really good love and, you know, growing, and even moving into the unless you want to say something else on preservation. We're going to move into the next one, which is communication.
Okay, so this one is from, well, actually, no, let's take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back and go into that next one. So first one was to preserve the life of your spouse. That's the first number one advice. We'll be right back.
Please don't wake me up, 'cause I can see the snowfall in July. Thinking about you, I can see the sun come out at night. Thinking about you, just thinking about you, girl.
All right, thank you for joining us again for God's Dynamics Family Building.
We're at the second part.
Yes,
of
the second
the
part.
number one
Number one.
advice for marriages, and this one comes from your perspective.
Yeah, and it's a
So
big
what is
one
your
for me.
your perspective as far as what is the number one advice you give to someone preparing to get married or someone that has been married of how to have a successful marriage?
And that's communication.
Say it louder.
Communication. To me, without communication, whether it's communicating verbally, whether it's communicating physically, like sexually, whatever lead.
Yeah, and there's a
in
lot of ways to
communication.
communicate.
There's a lot of ways to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
But without that communication, I think there becomes a breakdown, a not knowing,
Mm-hmm.
a disconnect.
Yeah, and there's a lot of assumptions when there's not proper
Yes.
communication.
Mhm.
And we know what about assumptions. We don't have to go into that too much, but
When you assume,
I think most of our listeners
most of
actually
our
know
listeners
that.
probably know.
So,
But yeah, so communication, and I remember when I immediately thought about it. I thought about this, but I remember when we talked about it briefly, because we have to understand, even in marriage, we come from different perspectives. Even though we are one, we do come from different perspectives. And I remember when I was talking to my husband, I said to him, you know what scripture comes to my mind? He's like, what does that have to do with communication? And I'm like, just listen. But the one thing that it just came to my mind is by wisdom a house is built, right? And by understanding it's established, and by knowledge is filled with all pleasant and precious riches, right? So you got wisdom, understanding, and knowledge,
all in communication.
all in communication.
So all in number 2 of the number 1.
Stop
We have three.
confusing.
We have 3 separate divisions of the number 2, number 1. So we have number 2A, number 2B, and number 2C.
Yes,
Wisdom.
understanding and
Understanding
knowledge.
and
But think
knowledge.
about it in communication though. When you communicate, even especially in marriage, and I know even, and you can flip it any way you want it. You can start with knowledge, you can start with understanding, or you start with wisdom. You can say, you know, even in getting to know you, I have to use wisdom. You know, sometimes when, you know, communicating with you, there's certain triggers that, you know, we both have.
Mm-hmm.
And people will have in marriage, there's certain triggers. And you have to know that, and you have to use wisdom. It's not always and our pastor said about, you know, it's not always doing what you think is right or whatever, but what is the wise thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Using wisdom in marriage, how to speak, because there's many times we've had this, you know, big discussions, you know, why did you have to say it like that, or, you know, and that's growing to understand the person. You know, you don't want there to be miscommunication, just like how you said, assumptions can be made when you don't know the person, you know, or where they're coming from, or when we don't use wisdom, then there's a lack of understanding, and, you know, we start going off in all different tangents, different directions, because there's that void. You don't know, you know, who or how
That's the knowledge
to
part.
deal with. Yeah. So you have to use wisdom in communication. And it says, by wisdom, a house is built. And that's how the relationship is built. That's how I said solid relationship is built. By wisdom. See, I told you. By wisdom, a house or a solid communication is built, or relationship. Then by understanding, it's established. Now you know, I understand where you're coming from. I know what you're doing. You know, we both communicate well. We come to an understanding, a common ground, an agreement, as opposed to this disconnect or the void, or, you know, and by knowledge, then that relationship becomes filled with all these pleasant and precious riches, which is that life of joy, that life of wonderful experiences. Not to say we won't have any challenges or whatever, but we know how to deal with them.
Okay.
We know how to deal with each other.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because you sound like you was in like a fairy tale.
No,
our
that's
advice
not what.
is not going to bring you fairy tale marriage. It's
No.
It's just advice for what we found and what we've seen, even looking in the Word as we bring scriptures to you.
And that's the key too.
That
the
works,
word, using
yeah.
the word. Because
Yeah.
if we didn't, and that's that common ground I was talking about, that understanding
Mhm.
that even when I felt like, oh, you know, I just, you know, you upset and you just want to go to, you know, upset and go to bed mad. The word says, don't go to sleep
Oh, why you upset? with
upset.
another- Yeah.
You know,
Don't let the sun go down on you.
let not the sun go down. I was attempting to get the right, wording. Let not the sun go down on your wrath.
But you're on communication. That's the point you said. Communication.
Yeah, and it's still
Okay.
it's
He's trying to sneak another one in there, but
I
communication.
am not. We're in communication.
All right. So we have for second one we have communication.
So first is
First is
preservation.
preservation. Number two is communication, and we're gonna come right back with our next and final number one of three.
Right.
Number one. All right, we're back one more time for the final piece of the number one advice for marriages. Whether, once again, if you're looking to get married or you've been married for a while, we come with three different perspectives. We share first what my father shared with us before we got married, and about preserving the life of your spouse. And Karen, you just mentioned about communication, how
Yes.
communication is
It's vital.
vital importance
Relationship.
for relationships, for marriage. And the third, I would say, and this is something, actually I say, it's something I shared with the boys, especially the boys, because we have four, the older boys, and I have to even remind them as well too. I would say one of the best advice that I would share with someone looking to get married is start early.
Mm.
You know, so this is for
That's
the
true.
pre, you know, someone that's younger or what have you. But my advice would be to start early because
Why
it's so
waste
better.
time?
Yeah, it's so much better to be growing together for as long as you can with your spouse, as
And that's
opposed
how
to
we do it.
waiting for two individuals that already have established careers, have established lives, to try and blend that together. It's not that it can't be done. It's just harder.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember when I was
That's
younger,
cement.
yeah, it's like the cement. You can write in cement while it's still wet, but when it gets harder, it's
harder.
It's just harder. You have to use a chisel. and
Chisel
get
to now
get
work things in and work things through.
Yeah. So I remember when I was younger, because we were engaged when I was 18, and we were engaged, and we ended up getting married when I was 20. But there was a point when I came, I was like, I didn't want to play around anymore, or I wanted to start my life. So then I started looking for the person that I was really going to settle down with and get married to. And you have to figure too, at that, when you're younger, whatever age, it might be that you're younger, you have more options. Because the longer you wait, there's people who get, they get in other relationships,
That's
other things
true.
happen, they might have a child or what have you, and you have less options, I would just say it, as you get older. So my number one advice would be to start
early.
Start early. Don't delay. Not to say take the first thing that comes your way. You
Right.
still want to use wisdom.
Of course.
You
Of
still
course
use wisdom
not.
and find that right person. But for me, I would say to start early. And the scripture I would use from Proverbs says that whoso findeth a wife findeth
That's
a good thing and obtains favor of the Lord. So
Yes.
it took me looking for a wife in order for me to find a wife, but I had to start early.
But also too, and I'll say this for even young ladies out there, and you have to make yourself findable, or kind
Prepare.
of wife material. Prepare
Yes.
yourself. It's not just in certain cultures they even do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just you here, there, trying this thing, going this place with this one, that one, so forth, so forth. No, start preparing. That's thinking ahead, thinking future. Just like how you said that you didn't want to waste any more time.
Mm-hmm.
You just wanted to make sure that you found the right person. There are guys, great people out there looking for the wife,
Mm-hmm.
and he's looking to find the good thing and obtain favor from, not perfect, because you still have to grow together, you still have to, experience that oneness, that blending, that, that union.
Yeah.
So, but, start, I would say, from the other side, for young women, make yourself findable.
Prepare yourself.
Prepare yourself.
Okay, so as far as just a quick roundup, as we went through, the first one was to preserve the life of your spouse. Number 2, communication.
But think about the wisdom, the understanding, and knowledge.
Okay, so communication, using wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. And then third was to start early.
Yes.
Start early, as in early can be starting, making up your mind. If you want to be married, you start from now to start preparing yourself, or start looking to find that right person for you to continue on the rest of your life with. So
Those are our 3 number ones.
yes, all right. We thank you so much for joining us today on God's Dynamics Family Building Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And we look forward to sharing other future podcasts with you as well. Continue to check our website.
www.godsdynamics.com. If you're listening to the podcast, you can, when you go on the website, you're also able to view some of the things that we'll be talking about through our YouTube channel and God's Dynamics YouTube channel, and look out for our upcoming books and stuff as well, and continue to help us build